On the line with us, our old buddy Thomas Linzey, the senior counsel for the Center for Democratic and Environmental Rights, CDER. Their website, Center for, F-O-R, centerforenvironmentalrights.org, as you may imagine, and the Twitter handle Rights of Nature, @RightsOfNature. Thomas, welcome back. I understand you guys are working on a big project down in Florida. Tell us about it.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having us back. So good stuff happening in Florida. Folks may know that back in 2020, people in Orange County, Florida, put forward an initiative for the ballot that recognized the rights of waterways within Orange County. And I think to a lot of people's surprise, probably it got 89% of the vote, which goes to show you that people in Florida can't agree to much else other than clean water. But that served as a stepping stone now for folks in Florida to work to qualify 5 constitutional amendments statewide. And so basically the work in Orange County has given birth to this wider movement in Florida towards qualifying these 5 amendments for the ballot in 2022.
So has the Orange County law been challenged?
It hasn't been challenged, and in fact, we helped to file an enforcement case at the end of April of this year against a land developer who wants to develop 1,900 acres of land for commercial and residential development that will include destroying about 130 acres of wetlands, which are protected now by that Orange County ordinance. And so that Orange County law has been used now in a lawsuit that was filed at the end of April to both stop the developer from moving ahead to destroy those wetlands, but also against the state of Florida itself to stop the state of Florida from issuing permits for the development to proceed.
And the state hasn't pushed back. I'm assuming they're going to fight that.
Yeah, we're expecting an answer from them on the 27th from both the developer and from the state. But what's fascinating to this whole process is that for the state to issue clean water permits to the developer, they basically have to prove that the development won't violate any local laws. But the Orange County initiative, of course, makes it illegal to fill those wetlands for that particular development. So it's going to be an interesting court case to follow. This is not the first in the United States to enforce one of these, what's become known as rights of nature laws, recognizing legally enforceable rights for ecosystems.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to go next. If you look at this in the most macro sense, the largest sense, this is literally about, we've talked about human rights since the founding of this republic. This is about the rights of nature. In the more micro sense, I think a lot of local people, when they're voting for it, they're not thinking, yes, I'm voting for the rights of nature. They're thinking, I'm voting to make sure that my water supply is safe. There's a whole bunch of stuff in between those two things. How do you navigate all that?
Well, it's about what's in the interest of people, and at the base, it's in the interest of people to have clean water. I think that's what we saw in Orange County. Believe it or not, Orange County is the only place in the United States where the right to clean water is actually legally enforceable. In other words, it actually exists. And so I think folks in Florida, from Governor Ron DeSantis and the legislature on down, which has proven to be a complete failure for protection of the natural environment, that people in Florida have pretty much given up hope on either the state or their governor to do anything about what's happening in the Everglades or in the Indian River Lagoon or the St. Johns River, the Caloosahatchee River, just to name a few. And so these constitutional amendments are about a complete failure of government to protect the natural environment. And I know the term ecocide has become popular lately, but what's happened in Florida is ecocide. It's a killing off of waterways. And I think people have begun to understand that conventional remedies from government are not going to happen. And so they're basically taking government back in some ways to pass these and qualify these 5 amendments for the ballot.
Right. It seems like this is, we're talking with Thomas Linzey. He's the senior counsel at the Center for Democratic and Environmental Rights. Centerforenvironmentalrights.org is the website, Rights of Nature on Twitter. Thomas, it seems to me like maybe it's an imperfect analogy or parallel, but here in Oregon, we decriminalized marijuana a couple of years back. And then last year, on the tail end of that, or building on the strength of that, on the experience of that, we just said, the whole state, hey, let's just end the whole war on drugs thing. You know, Nixon's whole war on drugs thing here in the state, we're just going to end it. And we decriminalized possession. I mean, it's not legal to possess a small amount of heroin or psilocybin, but it is not a crime. You get a traffic ticket for it, for these small amounts. And it seems like with the rights of nature, like you guys have found the wedge that could do the same thing. You know, there's a broad consensus across America, I would assume, as you saw, you know, in Florida with 89% of the vote going for, yes, we want clean water. Well, let's extrapolate from that. Let's not just stop the war on our waterways by the, you know, being run by the big developers and whatnot. Let's stop the war on the marshes, and let's stop the war on the forests and on the jungles and on the, you know, and ultimately on the animal and plant. Ultimately, the war on nature. Are you viewing it in that context?
Absolutely. I mean, the rights of nature concept, this concept of human civil rights type protections for nature, we wouldn't be talking about any of that if the existing regulatory system that we've been using to try to, quote, protect the environment, unquote, has been working, but it hasn't. We're in worse shape now than we were 40 years ago when the major environmental laws were passed by almost every major environmental statistic. So what's happening now is that push that you see is that as these natural spaces are eliminated, as species go extinct, as waterways dry up in Florida. I mean, I was recently in Florida, and they were using backhoes to pick up dead sea life off the coast. And so between red tide and algae blooms, people understand that we've reached our ecological limits, and I think the rights of nature are part of the recipe for actually coming back and saying we're gonna instate a new system of law. And Florida is at the peak of that right now. They are the epicenter of the rights of nature movement. Right, and the right to have clean water as a consequence of nature working the way it's supposed to, like a giant filter system, is such a great entry point for this. Thomas, Linzey, if anybody is listening or watching right now and they're saying to themselves, gee, I should do that here in Idaho or Arizona or Michigan or whatever, what do they do? Well, they can contact us, and we'll help them draft a law and help them navigate the campaign system. We have a new 501c4 set up that actually assists communities to run through the campaigning for these particular initiatives. But I would say for your listeners that live in Florida, the time is now to print, sign, and mail these petitions back in. They need 900,000 signatures by November of this year. The website is fl5.org, which stands for Florida5.org. All you need to do is put your information in once, and it will email you out these 5 petitions for these 5 initiatives that are going to hopefully appear on the 2022 ballot. So again, that's Florida5, fl5.org. So fl5.org, but only if you're a citizen of Florida and presumably a registered voter there? That's correct. And we all probably know people in Florida. It's time to pick up the phone and call them and explain why they should pass these. There are actually 5. 2 are getting the most press. One is the right to clean water, which is getting the most media because of what happened in Orange County. It's a statewide expansion of that. Mm-hmm. The second one is to protect iconic species like the Florida panther, the manatee, bottlenose dolphin, recognizing those species as having certain legally enforceable rights. Then it also bans wetlands from being filled in or destroyed, bans trophy hunting facilities, and bans toll roads that are programmed to go through conservation lands or rural areas in Florida. So it's kind of like an omnibus 5 constitutional amendment package that would fix a lot of what's wrong with Florida at this point, at least what the political winds have blown in. In Florida, if so you're trying to get this on the ballot for a ballot measure. If that passes, does it then have to be ratified by the Florida legislature or signed by the governor, or does it immediately become part of the Constitution? Immediately becomes part of the Constitution. And actually, of course, Constitution, highest law of Florida, basically overrides the state legislature, which last year passed a law attempting to prohibit the adoption of rights of nature laws at the municipal level. The preemption law. Both Ohio and Florida have passed these preemption laws, which attempt to prohibit municipal governments from passing any rights of nature laws. And of course, Florida has not been shy about passing preemption laws about other things. Recently, folks in Key West voted to ban large cruise ships from coming into their ports. the state legislature recently then passed a law to override that restriction on cruise ships. So it's happening around styrofoam packaging, plastic bag bans, you name it. Florida is the king of preemption and preemptive law, especially under DeSantis.